Señor, abre mis labios y mi boca proclamará tus alabanzas. Lord, open my lips, and my mouth shall proclaim your praise. Amen. The wise men came following a sign that they saw in the sky. Signs are everywhere, if we care to look for them. So I went around on the internet, my favorite place, and I found some funny signs. I want to share a few of them with you. So there's a sign on a university bulletin board, and it says, shoes are required to eat in the cafeteria. And a little smart alecky student comes back and attaches to the same sign, socks can eat wherever they want. There's a sign on a funeral home, drive carefully, we can wait. There was a sign on a restaurant that I saw that had read, closed, short cooks. Then one of their patrons attached another sign that read, higher, taller ones, I'm hungry. And then this one is my favorite. From a fun living travel agency, a travel agency, it says, go away, please. Once upon a time, in a land far, far away, there was born a little boy, and his parents named him Jesus. Isn't that a beautiful way to start a story? Doesn't that, once upon a time, just signal to you that something really good is going to follow? It's fun hearing stories. We love to hear stories from the time we're very, very small. Stories shape our worldview. They shape our identities. Hearing and telling our own story has been an important part of how we know who we are as individuals, as communities, even as a nation. There's a History Channel series called The Story of Us. Anybody seen that series? It's a wonderful series, The Story of Us, and it's the story of how the United States came to be. And they have a prequel now that they've developed, and it's called The Story of Mankind. I think they could have come up with a better title than Mankind, but that's what they chose. They could have said The Story of Humanity. Nobody asked me. So it's the story of the beginning of modern humanity. Humanity, as a matter of fact, not going so far back as the first humanoid, Lucy. If you know who Lucy is, she's our first human-ish creature. It doesn't go that far back, but it goes as far back as modern humanity goes, because it's important for us to know where we came from. In point of fact, humanity came from Africa. So we're all from the African country if we go genetically back far enough. So hearing the story of who we are and how we came to be is important, and it shapes how we look at things. And stories have been important in all cultures for generations. And here in the United States, there are storytelling festivals where you can go and hear fables or stories of how the West was won. There are storytelling competitions where storytellers go and gather to hone their craft. And of course, then we have modern day storytellers that we see when we are going to the movies or when we watch television. They're all stories. As Episcopalians, many of us fulfill our need for storytelling and for hearing stories from actual books. As our bookstore gives testament, we value the stories that we hear from books very much, even if they come electronically like mine. Mine are all on an electronic device. I've got this and I've got a Kindle as well. But many of us are still very fond of the actual paper books that we have, that we hold in our hands and literally turn the pages to. Stories are important to us. Reading is important. And even if you watch MTV, which was that early channel where young folks went to hear music or see music videos, all of those also tell stories. In our gospel today, we heard a part of a big story, the story about how Jesus came to be known in the entire world. It's a great story. Some say that it's the greatest story ever told. Think of it. The only way that we know about Jesus is because a small band of people told the story of their experiences. And they told it in such a compelling way that even now we are still telling that story. That story still enthralls us. They told it to as many as would hear it. So some of us are still telling the story, but not everybody. About maybe 50 years ago or so, we stopped telling the story. As a group, our denomination, we stopped telling the story. And I think that some people thought that everybody already knew the story. So we didn't have to tell the story anymore. And some people maybe thought that anybody who should know the story already did. So there was no reason for us to keep telling the story. But it's a good story. It's a story that brings hope. A story that offers a way of life that can lead to peace and to love and to joy. There are signs that that story is still important. So look around. Do you see what I see? There are people who would benefit greatly if they had heard the story. There are people, perhaps 2 generations among us, who have not heard the story. And I think that they could use the story that we know, the story that began here. Other institutions have struggled with their own survival, and they've figured out other ways of telling their story. The sages who traveled from far away saw a sign in the stars, and they decided to follow it, believing that it would lead to a new king. They saw a sign and they acted on it, because there are signs all around. Do you see what I see? Now, one of those institutions that has struggled with maintaining people's interest is classical music. Classical music has kind of had a struggle with getting newer generations involved in listening and appreciating it. But they have figured out a way to bring the music to the people. How many of you have ever heard of flash mobs? Anybody? Okay. Flash mobs are a way that people who have classical music training are bringing the music to the people. And for those of you who are not familiar with flash mobs, it's like, for example, at a mall, one person will start either singing or playing an instrument. And then seemingly from the crowd of passerbys, others begin to join in. And then pretty soon there's a conductor and a full orchestra will be there. And it's absolutely amazing, and it just brings all kinds of joy into your heart to see people joining in. So why are they doing this? Why are they taking their music to where the people are? Because it's hard to get through to people in our day and time. It's hard to deliver the message, to deliver the story. Classical music doesn't have a following among the younger generation. And so they figured out a way. So where are they? They're in the mall. So let's go to the mall then. And they figured out a way. But the interesting thing that the flash mob music connects to me in a very profound way is that a lot of the music, and if you go on YouTube and you key in flash mob, all kinds of videos come up about these experiences of people. I got one the other day from Dean Rowe, and it was from Italy. Because it's a worldwide phenomenon. It's happening all over the place. But the thing that I find really interesting is that a lot of the classical music that they're using to draw people in has a religious connection to it. Like the one that was from Italy that I just saw a couple of days ago, what they decided to play was Ode to Joy. And I found and they had singing. And of course they're singing in Italian, but you know they're singing Ode to Joy, the one we know. I mean, they're singing a religious song. And the first one that I ever saw or heard of was the one that they did at Macy's. And I think it was a Macy's in Philadelphia, where somebody started playing Handel's Messiah. And so pretty soon, there's all kinds of choral people, but the camera was intent on picking up on those who were bystanders. And the bystanders were singing. They were participating. Everybody stopped in the middle of Macy's. Everybody stopped what they were doing and either were listening, taping it, videographing it, or they were singing along. It was very, very moving. The one I saw most recently was, you know, my favorite Christmas hymn. You know what it is? I'm being egotistic. Thank you. Oh, Holy Night. I know who my crowd is. Oh, Holy Night was used in one of these flash mob scenes. And you know the verse where it says, fall on your knees? People in the mall fell on their knees. I cried. I cried when I saw that video. They fell to their knees. You know, they found a way to connect. They found a way to introduce the music to this other generation who otherwise, maybe in the whole of their Christmas season, that was it. That's all they got. That's all the religious, spiritual connection they got. But they went out. They figured out how to connect. Now, we've got big problems. Big problems that we don't have answers for right now. The hold that violence has in our culture is literally killing us. It's killing us. So what is the answer to change that in our world, in our culture? How do we do that? There are powerful forces that are keeping us hostage. But if we, in the church, those of us who are followers of the Prince of Peace, aren't going to do something about it, then who is? This is our fight. This is our issue. So we don't have any ready-made solutions. We have to come up with them ourselves. But the first thing that we have to do is accept that that is a role that we need to play. If we don't accept that that's a role that we have to play, that this is something that we should do, we're never going to find the answers. I don't know what the answers are, but I do know that we can find the answers if we decide that we're going to. You know that saying that if you can't imagine it, it's not going to happen? If you can't imagine it, we get nowhere. But if you can imagine it, if you can see us figuring it out, we will find a way. We will find what it is that we're supposed to be doing about this. So, we're on the 12th day of Christmas, despite the controversy about if today's the 12th day or not. And now we're moving into the season of Epiphany. And it's time to show that the birth of Christ means something. That the fact that Jesus was born is going to have an impact. The way the early apostles decided that it was a story worth telling over and over again. It's time for us to read the signs and to follow wherever the signs lead us, to be courageous enough to follow wherever the signs lead us, and to be foolish enough to believe that we can make a difference. Today we honor the three kings, and there's a reason that they are called wise, a reason that we call them sages, because they did something when they saw the signs. They followed the star that led to the Holy One of God. They are the symbol that makes us, we non-Jewish people, a part of the story. Because before this, you could say that Jesus came for the Jewish nation, for the Hebrews only. But the sages came from afar, from outside of the Jewish nation. They are the symbol that says we are a part of the story. This is our story now too. That's what they symbolize. That this is now our story too. Tat Welcome sent me this quote, and it's from a man named Howard Truman, who was the spiritual advisor to the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And here's his quote. When the song of the angels is stilled, when the star in the sky is gone, when the kings and princes are home, when the shepherds are back with their flock, the work of Christmas begins to find the lost, to heal the broken, to feed the hungry, to release the prisoner, to rebuild the nations, to bring peace among people, to make music in the heart. I pray that we will decide that the story that we have, the story that we know, is worth telling again. And I pray that we learn how to tell it in ways that connect to people in different ways, the way we need to connect in our day and time. Because, people, it is a story worth telling. Amen.